have EnterTheCronic's rabbit hole. And Roger, thank you so much for your reaction request. And we're very excited to get to this one because we are doing the entire history of English in 22 minutes, which will most likely be around 30 minutes for the reaction for y'all on that end. But very excited to get into this. This is from Rob Word's channel. And the write-up that you have for us, as this is your second request for this month, as this is dealing with the history of the English language, which is super interesting and educational. We know how much you love your education with language and all that too. So I'm glad that you're bringing that for us, so everyone else can experience that with us. And Rob Watts brings the story with some British humor, and that makes it easy to take it all in. So
very cool.
That sounds great too, because we have a pretty funny story to let you know on the flip side here. Okay, y'all, I think it's really time to finally come clean, and I know Roger is a team sport, so he'll be totally fine with letting you know what is kind of hilarious about our relationship. So what's so cool is Roger, the one who has given us the request here, super intelligent, always about history, and always has given us so much information ourselves, right? So anytime he comes, when we go visit, he gives us great history. Even when he came to Canada, he let me know more about even Canada than I knew myself.
Absolutely.
So I say that because of the just because of Roger's intelligence, but just knowing so many different things, especially about languages. So he knows how to like pronounce different because of all the different languages, you know. But what's funny is Roger's actual name is not pronounced Roger. It's actually, so we were saying Roger for so long, and then when we found out we were probably pronouncing it wrong, we then went with Roger. And then we actually found out it was closer to Rogier. And I even butchered that too. And we found that out when we went to the Netherlands, and then we found out how to pronounce it. So we found out how to pronounce even English words better from a Dutchie too, because that's what Roger is really good at. So it just feels really good to be learning from our good friend again.
It really does.
And to hopefully learn from someone that looks like is going to have a lot of good humor, because just from this standstill, it looks pretty awesome.
It sure does. I'm really excited to see this. This is going to be a ton of fun. Thank you so much, Roger, for bringing it down the rabbit hole. I'm really excited for the British humor because I love dry British humor.
One video, the entire history of the English language. What are we waiting for? Let's just get cracking.
Yeah,
Let's begin with what's best described as English's pre-history, which does not take place in England, but most likely all the way over here on the banks of the Black Sea, where a collection of late Stone Age clans and tribes are speaking a language that would one day eventually spawn our own. Their Proto-Indo-European language is the ancestor English shares with languages as geographically far apart as India and Iceland, and as diverse as Latin, Russian, Persian, and Sanskrit. It's in this ancient mother language, theorized by linguists, the words we still have now appear in their earliest forms. Words like mother and brother, sun and star, terms that speak to universal human concepts. Right. Oh, and speaking of stars, the little asterisk at the start of each of these tells you that they've never actually been seen written down. Why? Because they never were. This was a culture that didn't write. Right. These are just what linguists have worked out the terms were likely to be by working their way backwards from later languages. Another of them from Proto-Indo-European is the root gemb, which to the Proto-Indo-Europeans meant something like tooth, but survives in English to this day as the word comb. Do you see the link? Anyway, these Proto-Indo-Europeans slowly dispersed, taking their language with them. And the ones that we want to follow are the ones who headed west into what's now Northern Europe. As they did so, their way of speaking their language changed and became distinct, evolving into what we nowadays call Proto-Germanic, another ancient ancestor of English. And in Proto-Germanic, words that had been previously pronounced with a p sound started to be pronounced with a f sound, meaning that this became this, an early
Fader.
form of our word father. K sounds also turned into
Fader.
h sounds, meaning
Peter
that
is
this
Fader.
became this, an early form of our word head. And these early Germanic tribes were also linguistic innovators, borrowing words from other groups or just inventing them from scratch. From them, we get our words blood and bone, ground and gate, soul and sea. Again, earthy, universal concepts. And as their culture spread, their language divided up further still into what linguists describe as three groups. North Germanic,
So
which
West
would
Germanic.
produce the Scandinavian languages, East Germanic, which spawned the extinct Gothic, and West Germanic, which would soon birth English.
Gothics.
But we're not
cool.
there yet, because we're still on the continent in what would become modern-day Denmark, the Netherlands, and Germany. Here,
Okay.
West Germanic tribes are speaking a variety of dialects, but are largely understandable to one another. Also, they're encountering the Romans, who are in the neighbourhood and borrowing some of their Latin words, words that tell you a lot about Roman life, actually. This is
And
where...
like, I'm glad that was finally brought up, because for me, if I didn't know this, that's the first thing I would have went back to on my history of what I've known is the Latin, how it derives from that. So really cool to see already the trajectory, how they're showing the title of the language, but then also how they disperse, because that's really interesting for me too. So this I really like what he's doing with this. This is really quick, to the point, and very informative.
Very informative. I like his video style as well, how he goes back and forth between the maps to give you the visual representation of where the movement is happening, and then back to himself speaking.
Helps you take it in.
Helps you take it in really well. Very good teacher, very good at what he's putting out there for people to learn.
Definitely master linguistic.
And we first get camp and wall, mile and street, and cheese and wine.
Yay!
Ah,
Yay!
yummy, yummy.
Yummy, yummy.
Then, in the 5th century, over in Britain, where the
I
Romans
don't
have actually
like
recently
it.
hopped it, discord is raging among the Celtic tribes that inhabit the southern portion of the island. And they're also facing a constant threat from the Scots and the Picts up north. So, the story goes that a Celtic king called Vortigern calls in some of the rough lads from across the water to help him cling onto power. Only the Germanic tribes that heed that call for backup end up themselves being the threat. First the Jutes, then the Angles and the Saxons end up taking control of the majority of the Celtic territory. The area under the combined control of these Jutes, Angles and Saxons, these Anglo-Saxons, becomes known as Angloland, or, to you and me, England. And the mutually intelligible West Germanic dialects brought over from continental Europe combine and take on their own character, becoming the language that we now call Old English. And English is born. So you can see how even before it became English, our language had travelled across a continent. And you too can be a globetrotter from the comfort of your own sofa with the help of this video's sponsor, NordVPN. NordVPN enables you to change your online location, meaning you can surf the net like you're abroad and, for example, watch streaming content that's only available elsewhere. But for me, the biggest benefit of NordVPN is online security. Not only does disguising your location make you sometimes far irritating parts of the internet switched on all the time, and I can protect a special link in the description with 4. It really is
good video.
Now, Old English to go. Go to nordvpn.com/robwordsvpn. Now, Old English is a beautiful language, but to the modern English speaker, it's just gibberish. Not only because, to start with, it's written in runes, actually, this is one of the Old English runes, but also because around 85% of the vocab from Old English is no longer in use today.
Wow, 85%.
Oh, and Old English's grammar? Oh boy, is it different.
Really?
It has a complicated system of word endings based around 4 grammatical cases. Don't worry if that means absolutely nothing to you. It shouldn't. And it also has 3 grammatical genders, masculine, feminine, and neuter. Oh, you know how we have singular and plural pronouns?
Yeah.
Well, Old English had a third type, dual pronouns, that you use when referring to two people. But although Old English is
okay.
incomprehensible to the modern reader, and it really is, even after the Anglo-Saxons converted to Christianity and adopted the Roman alphabet, we are using Old English in every sentence that we utter.
Didn't know it was
The
in
words I
runes.
am saying now all come from Old English.
Wow.
What's more, Old English has or develops sounds that still make English distinct from its modern-day Germanic siblings. Sounds like the and th sounds in that and three, or the j sound in edge and bridge. And also a lot of our weird plurals are direct holdovers from Old English grammar. We have feet and mice instead of foots and mouses as a result of the weird way the Anglo-Saxons changed vowel sounds in some plurals. Oxen is the last vestige of the Old English N plurals, and wolf becomes wolves in the plural because of the way the Anglo-Saxons would pronounce an F like a V sometimes, depending on the sounds that were around it. Their word 47, for example, is spelt with an F, but it's pronounced Sjorvan. And there's a very day-to-day way in which we evoke Old English all the time, and that is with our names for the days of the week. The Anglo-Saxons' pre-Christian gods appear in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Now, some of those gods may look familiar because you're perhaps acquainted with their more showbiz cousins worshipped by the Vikings. And it is the arrival of the people of the Norse on English shores that brings about the next big moment in our language's history.
Interesting. Okay.
What begins with a few sporadic raids on some unsuspecting seaside monasteries eventually, to cut a long story very short, results in the Vikings taking control of a huge chunk of England, an area that became known as the Danelaw. And in this area, the North Germanic language of the Vikings, Old Norse, came into conflict with the West Germanic language of the Anglo-Saxons, Old English. Wow. I use the word conflict advisedly there because it is at this time that a lot of violent Viking vocab enters English. Words like ransack, slaughter, knife, and of course berserk. But such terrible terms by no means tell the whole story, because the Old Norse words that enter English also speak to the mundanity of everyday life in mixed Anglo-Saxon Danish households. The Norsemen also gave us such essential elements of our language as the verb to take, our pronouns they, them and their, and a word as basic as are, meaning take them as they are, is almost entirely Scandinavian.
Wow.
Old Norse and Old English were perhaps similar enough that speakers of one could understand speakers of the other, but the differences between them may have caused them to influence one another too. Rubbing up against Old Norse may have been what finally finished off English grammatical gender. But no one's really sure about that one. It's a mystery. Anyway, it's the arrival of another bunch of Norsemen that would trigger the next and perhaps single biggest event in the history of our language. In 1066, the Normans turn up and seize the English throne from the Anglo-Saxons. William the Conqueror becomes king, and Norman French becomes the language of England's elite. Now, I call the Normans Norsemen because that is what they were. They were Vikings who settled in northern France and learned the lingo. And once their leader, Willie, had got his hands on the levers of English power, he had no intention of letting go of them. He replaced the Anglo-Saxon nobility, the earls, thanes and athelings, with his own French barons, dukes and princes. He sacked the English bishops and installed French as the language of leadership. The now subdued Anglo-Saxons needed to learn French words if they wanted to get by. So English absorbs a whole host of French terms associated with power, justice, art, government, law and culture, such as power, justice, art, government, law and culture. But not only those, all of these as well.
Oh, geez.
In fact, the quantity of French terms that English adopts is so enormous that it's practically impossible to form a sentence without using some. I'm serious. The changes wrought on English by the arrival of the French are so profound, that's another French word, that we call the before and the after by different names. The before is Old English and the after is Middle English.
Really?
The first few centuries of the Middle English period are really English's wilderness years.
Well, you can see why the French and the English, how it really, even though they influenced each other so much, because of that influence would cause a lot of friction and also a lot of cooperation. Because
Yeah.
also you have the French who are given like the Statue of Liberty to like America, you know, and
Absolutely.
stuff like that too. So
Our
like,
parliament buildings were given to us by the French as well here in Canada.
so thinking of even the adoption of the words and the power of what words really are, if you really think of it through this too.
Mhm.
So like you're thinking of some of these more barbaric words that are brought from these different places that you then get adopted, and then you can attribute these words to different gods and all that too, and having different
Mhm.
connotations to the meaning of it. And that's why some people think some words are worse than others because of where they derive from. And like, it's actually
Absolutely.
really interesting if you think of it to know how much power behind them, because before even going into alphabets, like these were real runes.
Yeah,
Like,
English was literal
like it's
runes.
really cool if you think about that too. Like, so like, and there's something magical even more about it. And like it makes you believe in the power of words more, knowing about the history of
Absolutely.
it, right?
Absolutely. And like there's something that's very powerful about like there's some like the things that you say. Like there's growing up there was always sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me.
Words will never hurt me,
But the
or
words
names.
always hurt more than always hurt longer than the broken bone ever did. So it's crazy to see like now that you know where words come from and like where they derive from and how there's like English, like growing up, my dad always told me that English was just all the different languages and a trench coat, right?
Of
And so
course.
you can really see how that is. And people took the words that they needed to be able to say what they needed to say, whether it was going to hurt or not. Like even egg was taken from somewhere else, whereas using was taken from the French. Like you can't use speak in a sentence without using a French word,
For
right?
sure.
So it's just so interesting and cool to see how this has kind of evolved our language.
Yeah, because in my mind, English was like the last language made. And
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong by that, but I always thought it was one of the last languages made, even though it's probably not. But that's just how naive I am with the fullness of how language really got to us. So this is really helping. I'm loving it.
Years.
Yeah.
England goes 300 years without an English-speaking monarch.
Wow.
However, events such as the Hundred Years' War with France and the upheaval brought by the Black Death conspire to bring our language back to life. In 1362, England's Parliament is opened in English for the very first time. English soon becomes the official language of the courts too, and Henry IV, an actual English speaker, ascends to the throne. The Middle English that emerges from the darkness is more comprehensible to us than Old English was, but it is still pretty tricky. The most notable writer of the period is a certain Geoffrey Chaucer, and if you ever tried to read the Canterbury Tales in his original dialect, it is hard going. But hey, our poetry
I've heard of
rhymes
the
now, which
Canterbury
it didn't
Tales.
before. Gone for good is the grammatical gender of Old English, as are the H's, perhaps because the French couldn't pronounce them, at the start of a load of words, like clavord, which became lord, ring, which became
Really?
ring, and hnutte, which became nutte. Nut.
Nut. Yeah.
Another major figure of the Middle English period is a fella called William Caxton, who basically single-handedly initiated a process that would ultimately turn English into what it is today.
Really?
He set up Britain's first printing presses and produced the first printed books in English. This not only made books in English much more widely available than they had been when they had to be written out by hand, greasing the wheels of the proliferation of knowledge, but it also kick-started the standardization of the language.
Yes.
Caxton was printing books in his own preferred dialect, London Chancery English, and this very specific form of Middle English was therefore being read across the country.
Right.
Despite the enormous variations in how English was being spoken in different places, a standard way of writing it was starting to catch on. As a result of this, Caxton's printers held a huge amount of power in their ink-stained hands. Decisions they made about how certain words should be spelt were bound to be adopted countrywide, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was for worse.
I bet.
A lot of the people working at the early presses in Britain had been brought over from the continent and had their own ideas about how English words should be spelt. For example, they thought that ghost should be spelt with an H, like it was in Dutch. So now it is. They thought thumb, crumb and limb should have silent Bs, like comb, lamb and womb. So now they do. And they thought that could should have an L to match with should and would. So now it does. Even though will and shall have L's in them, but can doesn't. What's more, they reckoned all these HW words should be WH words instead to match English's many TH, SH and CH words. So guess what?
Oh.
Now they are. The standardisation of spellings
Interesting.
initiated by the printing presses could not have come at a worse time, really, because just as it was beginning, English was going through a revolution.
And I think that's what people forget about what could be even happening right now as we speak, where people are trying to say, like, no, it's rules, like it's people who are in power who are dictating how to speak and all these things, where there's technically they have more. There's more to what they're saying than what people want to, I think, give it. That's why there's more handle on like how language is being so malleable even right now.
It is very malleable right now.
And because of just how much people can address it and attack it with different tools, but like, because it's the printing press that then help make it standardized. So
Absolutely.
now with the newer tools, there's going to be even different ways to make a different way of talking, right?
Even let's talk about like the standardization of words. I look at how we spell color in Canada versus the United States. We spell it with a U. We spell a lot of words with U's and different things like that, or extra L's in them and different things. Because we still follow British English here in Canada. Whereas in the States, they follow American English, which is different as well.
Very true. Another variation of English. And now, because we share a border with America, a lot of our younger generation is now adopting American English versus British English, because there hasn't been a... back when we were in school, there was more of a standardized on British English. Yeah. Now there's a more standardized on American English in testing because of spell check. And spell check is always set to US keyboards. So it's really, so that's like another way where things are changing and adjusting and morphing and becoming a different variation of English yet again in the era of technology. Yeah, and I just remember coming back from America, going there, no one says A, you say A. But then coming back, I say y'all now, and like it just changes your vocab going to anywhere that even speaks the same language that you thought, right?
The famous Great Vowel Shift. Over a couple of hundred years from the 15th century onwards, the way English speakers pronounced long vowel sounds changed. A word being pronounced like bought at the start of the shift was being pronounced closer to how we say it now, boat, by the end of it. Pre-shift mate became post-shift meat. So spellings were being nailed down in the middle of a transition, meaning that they sometimes reflected pronunciations that were already out of use. And we still have those dodgy spellings today. The way we write out long vowel sounds is an absolute mess. The Great Vowel Shift began in the Middle English period, but it ended in the next major phase of English, what we nowadays call Early Modern English. Early Modern English is most notably the English of Shakespeare, and I'm sure you've read some of his stuff. It's understandable, right? It's a bit odd, but it's understandable, isn't it? Well, he's writing in the 16th and early 17th centuries, which is also when English is gaining a new powerful position within the religion of the land. In 1539, every church gets an English translation of the Bible, a huge achievement considering centuries past had seen people executed for daring to transcribe the Lord's words into such a lowly tongue. And then in 1611, we get the masterpiece that is the King James Version. You know, no book is thought to have contributed more words to the English language than the Bible. And by the same token, no individual is said to have contributed more than William Shakespeare. There are hundreds, if not thousands of words that first appear in print in the works of William Shakespeare. It's either
Easy,
because
actually.
he coined them or because he was simply the first to write them down. There are so many that the subject deserves its own video,
That's actually
which I
really
just so
interesting.
happen to have recently made. Give it a watch later.
Wow.
A lot of his contributions are reworkings of existing words. He's the first to call the dawn instead of the dawning. He coins successful by sticking full at the end of success, and invents grovel by knocking the end off, grovelling. He also seems to be the first to import the word hostile from French and bandit from Italian. But that isn't the be-all and end-all. As luck would have it, he gave us all manner of idiom, for goodness sake. Shakespeare is without doubt the big beast of the early modern English
so
period.
cool.
Him and Jesus. Jesus is also quite a big deal. But there's other stuff going on as well. Another major development is that English is leaving Britain's shores. Colonialism sees it landing in America and India and later on Australia. And the transatlantic slave trade results in the creation of English creoles, where people in Africa and the Caribbean are being forced to learn bits of the language to get by.
Right.
Separately from that, the scientific revolution brings its own wave of new words like gravity, energy, experiment and microscope. And the need to understand all of these newfangled Latin and Greek imports leads to the writing of the very first dictionaries. Any history of the English language should dwell for at least a little while on Samuel Johnson, whose magnum opus, published in 1755, was a dictionary of 40,000 entries, intended to nail down our language, or as he wrote as he was planning it, to preserve the purity and ascertain the meaning of our English idiom.
Well done.
His dictionary isn't perfect. In fact, at times it's a bit hilarious, but it created the template for dictionaries to come. So what did early modern English sound like? Well, I'm going to dub it English's lazy period because it's the time when we start dropping a lot of sounds. It's when the K and G stop being pronounced at the start of words like night and gnome. We stop pronouncing the T's in words like castle and hasten, and the L's in folk and palm disappear for a lot of people. Some accents did keep them and others have since reinstated them, inspired by the spellings. Also during this period, we start to use the word do in a host of
That's
really
actually
weird...
really cool to know. So like maybe it was Island before.
Island.
And like things like that.
Yeah,
and
like island.
And people are now being all like, no.
But it's funny because when he said palm, like I say palm, like it's like a weird silent L that you kind of half pronounce.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a weird pronunciation, and if you're a native speaker, you get it. If you're not, it's weird trying to get your tongue around it.
100%. So like he's giving you so many variations and also letting you know, letting me know, at least I'm sure for you too, just how much variety and how hard it actually is to learn a language again.
It is really
as
hard
we're
to
trying
learn
to
a
teach our
language
kids
again.
even right now too, like it's just like there's so much places to start at, and like crazy to think really how English just got here and the diversity of it, and like the rules bending that it's done, and like how it's taken away things and added it back and all that too. A very indecisive language.
It's a very indecisive language, a lowly language as they called it.
I can see why. And when you go traveling, I think there's a lot more pride in people's language outside of the English language that I saw, in my opinion. And I don't know maybe why, but it could be just me too. But anyways.
Weird ways. We start putting it into questions, for example, like, do you not love me? That's Shakespeare. We use it to create negatives like, I do not enjoy Shakespeare. Sacrilege. And we use it for emphasis like, I do think you should click subscribe now. Go on, you've made it this far. In all of those constructions, the word do isn't really doing anything. It's just there. And it turns up in early modern English. Next comes the 1800s, and with it the reign of Queen Victoria and the start of the period of English that we are living in right now, the modern English or present day English period. The last 200 years of development in our language have been to a large extent driven by technology, be it by the invention of the Victorian penny post back in 1840, the first telegraph cable across the Atlantic in 1865, Bell's telephone, Edison's phonograph, Marconi's radio, the Lumiere brothers' motion picture camera, or John Logie Baird's idiot
Internet
box.
and AI changed it too.
We've also picked up all manner of
Baby.
borrowed vocab through colonialism, commerce, culture, and a couple of world wars. There are a few characteristics of how we speak today that are distinctly modern English, beyond the, obvious? Yeah, I don't mean that sort of thing. I mean, like the fact that we use the passive voice way more than English speakers of old did. Passive sentences are ones where you don't say who is doing an action. My cat is being neutered today has the cat as the subject of the sentence, despite it actually being the thing that the neutering is happening to.
Yes.
Oh no.
Poor thing. James got beaten up yesterday. Yeah, but by whom? Phrasal verbs are also a huge feature of modern English and are a nightmare for adult learners of the language.
Yeah.
To come up with, to come across, to come down, or to come out are all very different actions despite using the same verb. And there isn't always a logic to them.
Yeah.
And our language is, of course, still changing. Why? Because reasons. New constructions like because reasons are being spread by the internet, like linguistic memes.
Yeah.
The rise of the internet and the might of America mean that English's position in the world has never been stronger. Around
There you
1.5 billion people can speak it. That's like 1 in every 5 humans.
Crazy.
And are there any signs of it being knocked off its perch as the closest thing we've ever had to a global language? Well, I mean, I don't personally think so. By the end of the century, these are on course to be the 4 biggest countries by population, and 3 of them have English as an official language. But the future of English is, of course, a question for another video. Thanks for watching this one, giving the entire, I think, history of the English
Well
language.
done.
I have made
Very
other
well
videos
done.
about so many of the things that we've covered here. I'll link to them all in the description. If you enjoyed this,
We'll be
you
coming
should
back.
sign up to my totally free newsletter. Go to robwers.com/newsletter.
Ooh,
And
that's
please
cool.
hit like and subscribe. They tell the algorithm to show you more of my stuff. I'll see you in whatever you choose to watch next. In the meantime, take care.
Take care, Rob. That is
Care.
great. I love learning that too, and I've always known somewhat about the Germanic influence as well too, and seeing how the Vikings and the Norse and all that had kind of bled into that. That's actually really intriguing. Because we're Canadian, so knowing where we come from and all that too, going all the way to there is really exciting too, knowing like what the Bible's influence too, and just what technology itself really does for
Yeah.
transferring language itself. And we're talking so much now about the AI movement and how it's picking people's speech as well from other people's idioms and all that too. So now everyone's the master of their own language too. So
Absolutely.
I don't know how universal things are gonna go and how that's gonna change how English is gonna move forward, or if it's always going to remain the dominant force. It sure looks like it still too, but there's so
Mhm.
many different places. As you saw, China has a lot of people, and that is somewhere that does not have English as one of its things. But I didn't even realize that India has English as one of their prominent
It
languages
does.
too. So for me, it actually is more dominant than I even thought it was.
English is actually very dominant. I've talked to some people from India. I've talked to some people from even the Philippines.
Right.
But what something that both of those countries have in common is that they have hundreds of languages
Right. Very true.
that are from different tribes, different regions, different things like that.
Yeah.
Hundreds of languages within their countries.
Very
So
true.
they have English as a common denominator between all these hundreds of languages. It may not be spoken perfectly between every person who speaks it, but having a common language denominator really helps countries like India that have
Very true.
hundreds and hundreds of languages.
Middle ground almost.
It's a middle ground
Yeah,
language.
yeah.
And because it's able to pick up words so beautifully and reintegrate them into the language so well, it can pick up words from any language. So if it's become a middle ground language in a place like India, for example, it could pick up different things that they need so that they can even speak half their whatever tongue it is in that tribe, and then a little bit of English to speak to somebody within another tribe.
Yeah, I get you.
Right, so
For
it
sure.
just works really well as a middle ground
Yeah.
language. And I only brought that up because those are two countries that I know that use it in that form. But something else that's really cool about English that I think this video really brought together is how much like it has changed and is still changing. And he even mentioned the guy who wrote the first dictionary, how
Yeah.
it was hilarious in some point,
How do you explain some of the words?
how he
I
explains
thought
some
that's
of the
what it
words.
meant.
Right, exactly. And it makes me think of right now the thing that we have on the internet is Urban Dictionary,
Yeah, no kidding.
and how it explains words and how
All
it's
this
able
slang
to
coming out of nowhere.
explain slang words and things. Like, I don't know how many times I've had to go to Urban Dictionary to try and understand like Avery or different things like that when him and his friends are talking about things.
Of course, and that's changed and by the
But
minute
that's
with all these
changing
new
now.
memes and
And
stuff.
like even in his generation now, they're starting to bring in a lot more movement into their speech. So Avery will keep doing this thing sometimes where he goes like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I don't know what that means, right? Because it's not a word, it doesn't mean anything, but it's almost like sign language.
It's like an emoji.
It's like an emoji.
Yeah.
Right? So
Animated,
like,
yeah, living emojis now.
like living emojis.
Yep.
But it's interesting to me because now the language that we're picking up is picking up body language as aspects of the verbal communication,
Of course.
which it always has had, and it's always had lyrical influx. Like how you ask a question, how you say the word "what" could be a statement, a question, or something else depending on your vocal influx of it.
100%, yeah.
Right. And I know, and so it's crazy how that has also been brought in from other places. Like I believe in Asia, they have very lyrical or musical languages that are based on like how you inflect
I see.
on what it perceives. So it's cool how English has even brought in a lot of that into it as well. So I know it wasn't really talked about in the video there, but that was just
That's
something
okay.
that I was thinking of. But it's just, I
Nice.
think this is really a cool video that really makes you think about the creation of the language that you speak, which is something that we don't really do often, is think about the creation of the languages that we speak. We just use them.
Yeah, at least we don't. I know people that are probably here, dude.
Yeah.
That's probably why you're watching this too, to get some of that knowledge. And something for me that is really cool too that I've learned is places that have had English in their history for longer have more variation, and now that makes more sense because of how many different things had to form to still make it. Because like if you go to England, when I was there, there's, and that the island is big obviously, but like there was a lot of different dialects.
Yeah.
Where if you come to Canada, it really, you have to go across the whole country to even hear a different type of like even English.
Yes.
Like the East Coast has like a little different slang, but like it's still all the same words and nothing's changed.
Absolutely.
But so I think that's just cool how in Canada you barely even see a little variation because it's really standardized here.
It's very
right?
standardized over here in North America. Whereas definitely like you're saying, when you go into where English was birthed, there's so much variation to the language itself.
Now you can see why, because they just have so many different influences, right? So anyways, we hope you guys had a good time with us too, because this is something a little new coming down the rabbit hole, and we love this stuff. So thank you so much, Roger and Cronicans. If you did not know, yeah, we do all the stuff, the music too, and we love it. So thank you so much for being here with us. Please hit the like button if you did have a good time. Comment down below what you thought about this history lesson of English, and I'm sure this actually did go a little over the 30-minute mark, but we hope you did have a good time with us. Subscribe if you are not a Chronican yet. If you want to get your own reaction and requests and put us down any rabbit hole, you can by joining our Patreon free trials, where we have 4 different tiers, with 2 of them with monthly membership requests. But we are now exiting the rabbit hole, folks.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us. Roger, this was an amazing request. I can't wait to see what else you have coming down the rabbit hole. Peace and love, everyone.
God bless y'all.
Take care, and bye for now. for making it to the end of the video. It's so good to see you here. And if you would like to continue in supporting us in our future endeavors, you can do so by supporting us over here. And if you really like this band or artist that you listen to in this video, you can support them right here. And we think you might like this video right here. So remember to click it and continue on your trip down the rabbit hole.
Thank you so much, Cronicans.
Thank you so much. Peace and love.